Welcome to War Thunder with Subdued. How y'all doing tonight? Well, I'd like to start a different series. And this will be a series based upon what missions are really good for what planes. Now, some of you know I've been really harping on the fact that Gaijin does not pay attention to their mission creation. And that's exactly one of the big problems that Gaijin has. They do not pay attention to mission creation. Some of these planes are absolutely spectacular at certain jobs. On screen you see the A-4D or A-4B, and the Skyhawk is a great ground attack plane. It's a moderately okay fighter if you want to use it in that mode. It's really not a fighter, especially the version we have. Now, you're probably going, well, what do you mean by that? Well, let's take a look at the X-ray real quick. We have the J65 W16A jet engine. Not a bad engine. Matter of fact, it's quite good. It does everything that this plane needs it to do. But when they put the J52 engine in the aircraft, they increased the capabilities of the aircraft enormously. And they also added 2 more hard points to it, so it could carry a lot more ordnance. And it could still fly the same speed and have the same maneuverability. Tough little plane. Any of you who have looked on War Thunder Live and seen the posting I put in there about the stories of actual A4 pilots, you'll know that the plane is a incredibly tough aircraft. And if in the future we get the A4E, which would be the definitive version other than the A4M, which was the Marine Corps version, we should have a plane that is more than capable of performing just about every type of mission in the game. Not a problem when it comes to ground attack, which is what this plane is good at. Other than the fact that the gun pod needs to have the rate of fire increased dramatically. I think right now it's firing about 300 rounds per minute, which is like it. That's 2.5 minutes of depressed trigger for a revolver dual-barreled cannon. And if you don't know what that means, go watch another posting that I put in War Thunder Live. And it shows you the actual operation of the gun pod, the cannons in the gun pod. Quite an interesting design, by the way. But there are missions that this plane is good on. There are missions that this plane, you get them and you're looking at everybody going, why am I here? Figuratively speaking. Well, let's take a look through some of these. We're going to go through custom battles because that's the fastest way to get there. And I'm going to look only at my favorites because my favorites covers quite a few of them. Now, here's some that you don't get to see very often unless you play ground forces. I don't. Fulda is an interesting map because it's got a lot on it. There's stuff that you can run into much taller than the trees, especially if you're flying the A4, because the A4 has to get down pretty close to put ordnance on target. This would be a good map for air realistic, however, we don't get it. And that, you know, all the Fulda maps. Okay, let's go into operations. Norway. Norway's an interesting one. 3 carriers, a runway that you will hopefully acquire. Not a very big runway either, so landing on that thing for anyone who isn't carrier born is going to be tough. I prefer the attackers, which are, for the most part, carrier aircraft. They can land, no problem. The problem is targets. Now, you can go after the ground targets around the airfield, or you can go after the ships. My preference is going after ships. That makes jets on this. I've never seen this with the A-4B. I would love to see this with the A-4B, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think they put a block in there that you can't get it. But I've seen it with the A-2D and below. Ruhr. I've seen this a lot. Ruhr is one of those maps. It's good in one direction, it's bad in the other direction. And it's especially bad since they took away your ability to take out bombing targets with a single, what on any other map is a single bombing run. By that I mean with the A4D, or excuse me, the A4B. I keep calling it the A4D because I've been watching a bunch of different movies on YouTube that are old and they were made before the changeover to the unified designation system. And A4D stands for A4 Douglas, and then it would be a 1, 2, 3 afterwards. But the A4B is an attacker. Well, what do you want to do with it as an attacker? You want to go for these tanks here, or these tanks here, or these ground targets. Well, the ground targets are kind of problematic because what are you doing? You're flying directly into the enemy fighters. Going after these ground targets, these tanks, is really kind of a non-starter because they are behind all these and you got these bad boys coming on. Whereas if you're coming from this direction headed for these, it's no big thing. You just swing off to the right and come down and get them. Now the bombing targets require between 6 and 8,000 pounds of ordnance to take out. Or what you would normally take 4 750-pound bombs, you would need 8 750-pound bombs to take out one strategic target, which doesn't do anything for you. And it really doesn't move the pointer that much. I would rather take out ground targets with my aircraft. And besides, we've been kind of limited on the amount of ordnance we can pack on the A-4B. 5,000 pounds of ordnance is not enough. And you only can carry only one 2,000 pounder. Like, oh dear God, would you people stop? All right. So Ruhr is kind of a one-way ticket. Otherwise, I won't fly it. Berlin. Again, this is another one-way target. If you're flying blue side, it's, as an attacker, it's not that fun. I mean, yeah, you got targets out there, you can go shoot them up, blah, 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 blah. Big, hairy deal. Most of them are pillboxes, and they're hard to kill. No fun whatsoever. If you're flying red side, well, you've got a plethora of targets. You've got incoming IL-2s, if you're silly enough to be going after them in A-4B. Or you got tanks and armored cars and AAA trucks that you can go blast to smithereens with big bomb loads. My personal favorite is 18 500 or 250 pound bombs. It's just rolling thunder, just boom, 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 boom. Occasionally I'll, watch it in the rear view mirror view, and just it's really spectacular to watch. But again, the problem is you're coming this way and you're coming right into the enemy, and sometimes they take off and turn around and come back for you. And you finish your bomb run and they're right on top of you, so whatever. But again, going from blue side, I hate it. Going from red side, it's okay. Boulogne-sur-Mer. Hopefully I said that right. This map needs some serious rejiggering. I haven't seen it in quite a while. But it needs some serious work. Red side needs some work. Blue side needs work. I don't know how else to put it. Red side needs a reason to be up in the air in the first place, other than you people who are fighter players. I mean, there's no map that isn't good for fighters. And Boulogne-sur-Mer would be absolutely spectacular for most of the Tier 6, high Tier 6 fighters. Phantoms, MiG-21s, Lightnings, Drakens. Those planes would have a freaking ball on Boulogne-sur-Mer, because they're able to get up to the altitudes where they can really rock and roll. For a plane like the A-4B, not so much, because there's very little in the way of ground targets, and there's very little in the way of, well, there's nothing. There's no reason to be flying it in the A-4B, or any other attacker for that matter. I mean, we've got the fuel to be able to do it, but we've got to have the reason. And there's no reason. Bulge. Bulge, 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 bulge. This one, there are so many different ways to fly this one. And this goes for both of the bulge maps. If you're just interested in taking out strategic targets, it's okay. If you're interested in taking out tanks, going from red to blue, it's okay. Again, you run into the fact that you're going to be directly under control of the fighters. And if you're an attacker, you're going to be way out in front of the fighters, and you're going to run into the enemy fighters first. If you don't run into an attacker that is only armed for air-to-air combat, like an A-4B loaded with nothing but sidewinders and a gun pod, which they still need to fix. I'm kind of ambivalent about both of the Bastogne maps. Let's go to Battle for the Rhine. I have never seen this in the A-4B. I would like to, but again, here we go with being directly under the guns of the enemy fighters almost immediately. Gaijin has to rejigger these maps, change their dynamics a bit. I don't know why they've done this, creating such a tight battle space. Now, I've seen this in the A2D a lot. And it's fun to play in the A2D occasionally. But again, now that they've changed the battle rating of the A2D, you see nothing but enemy jets. I have not seen a prop plane against A2D yet. It's always jets. And that's very disheartening. Moscow maps. Pretty much all of the Moscow maps. Not bad. There's ground targets, plethora of them. They're good. This map. I think it's called Lake Ladoga. I could be wrong. I don't know for sure. But this one, there's one where it's really fun. You got an airfield here, you got an airfield here, you got an airfield here, you got an airfield here. In an attacker, you come down this way, you can get all sorts of ground targets. I've come out of that with 20 ground kills. Gone back and landed and come up again and killed 2 bases. Because there's 4 bases. 2 here, and 4 across here. If you do it right, this map is awesome. Now there's another version of the map where you take off here and come with all the ground targets in between, and that's a low tier map. I would love to see this map in the A4D, or excuse me, the A4B, but I haven't seen it yet. I've seen it in the A2D and below, but I have not seen it in the A4B. I don't need to say anything more. This is the ultimate best map in the game. Bombers, tanks, AAA, artillery, triple, pillboxes, ships of all different types, bombers, AI bombers, which they need to upgrade. Seriously, they need to upgrade the AI bombers in this match. And they need to put AI bombers of sufficient strength. Now, you're probably wondering what I mean by that. Many people have said they want the Tu-95 and the B-52. Yes, want those, must have. Or the B-47 or something similar. Whatever the British one is. No, we don't need or want them. This is personal, by the way. My opinion only. And I'll give you the reason. They're too big. They're too big and unwieldy. I'm not going to fly a plane where the only thing I can do is fly along. Oh, there's my bomb target. Drop bombs. Okay, on to the next one. Drop bombs. Okay, on to the next one. Meanwhile, the enemy fighters are coming up, and I've got maybe a quad 50 in the back that's radar controlled that still isn't going to fire unless you're 600 meters away with an ace crew maxed out. So you've got to take manual control of a gun that should be able to pinpoint and fire at more than 2 kilometers because it's radar controlled. And the same goes for the Tu-95. And the B-52 would have, or the Tu-95 would have a incredibly high loss rate. We don't need it. We can't land it. I mean, they're supposed to be flying at 50,000 feet. You do the metric conversion. But the only thing that would be able to get up to them are the Lightnings, the MiG-21s, and the Phantoms. I'm not sure about the Draken. I don't know what the climb rate is. Don't care at the moment. I haven't got it yet. I'll get it eventually. If we ever get the French interceptor, which should be the Mirage, that'll be able to get up there. The Italians probably going to need the 104. We already know that the Germans are probably going to get the F4 Phantom. So they need to update the bombers on this map and keep them AI controlled. We do not need planes of that size as player-controlled aircraft. They should be on mission in formation to do their job. And interceptors, Phantom, Lightning, MiG-21, Draken, are designed to go up and tackle these planes. And while we're at it, change the direction with which the aircraft approach. Instead of approaching as such, have them come in this manner to do their bombing runs. And if you want to go after the bombers, you're going to have to work for it. Kreminsk, summer of 1945. Which, when you're flying an F-4 Phantom, you're like, oh, 1945? I went back in time? Woo! Again, needs an update. But, still a good map for attackers. The A-4B on this map is well suited. I've had fun on it. I've had aggravation on it too. But that's mostly due to teams that disintegrate within seconds of starting the match due to whatever. Afghanistan. Not a bad map. I would be happier if there were more actual killable ground targets rather than going after bases, supply depots, whatever you want to call them. I would rather be going after tank lagers. If you don't know what a lager is, go look it up. Truck parks, that sort of thing. It would be more interesting. Again, map design mission profile. A-4B is good on this map. I've had some success, I've had some disasters. But for the most part, it's not a bad map. I will fly it whenever I have it. It's not so good for any planes that are slower though, because it does take considerable amount of time to get from point A to point B, and you are at a pretty high altitude to begin with, and then you're going higher. I'm not sure B-29s get this, but Tu-4s do. And Tu-4s, they aren't bad. They do fairly well on here. The problem is they got those 23mm laser cannons, and I'm still ticked about that because those are manually controlled guns, and they should be firing all over the sky at 2 kilometers and missing everything. But no, not in War Thunder. They're laser cannons. They may as well be, radar controlled, AI controlled, and, infinite repeaters. Whatever. But these are the best maps in the game for attackers. You'll have fun on these maps with attackers. You won't have fun on the other maps because they just aren't worth it. The alternate history Berlin map, I've flown it with the A-4B, and it is fun sometimes. Other times, not so much. If you look at that map, let's look it up real quick. We'll hold on to that. Go out of the favorites. There we go. Alternate history Berlin. If you're flying red side, it sucks. It really does. If you're flying blue side, it's okay. Because you go after the bombing targets Or, actually I go for the bombing targets first. And if I can go back and rearm, then I'll go after ground targets. And there are some good ground targets to go after. Tank columns and such. But again, it's one of those maps where it really depends upon your team. And I have had so many times where the team just disintegrates. Let's take another look at some other maps. Hate this. Absolutely despise this map. Despise this map even worse. This map, yuck. None of these three maps are just junk. They're not even worth flying in an A-4B. Can you do stuff on them? Yep. If you're flying blue side on this map, you can go up and you can hit the ground targets. But you're going to be directly under the fighters almost immediately. Stupid map. Basically laid out by an ignoramus who had no idea what he was doing in the first place. It's okay if you're flying older planes, low tier 4 and tier 3. If you're flying tier 5 and tier 6 aircraft on this map, it's a nightmare. You're instantly engaged. But that's pretty much it. I've already given you more than enough to think about, and this has gone on long enough. Next time we'll go through maps that are good for the A2D, because there are a bit more. Well, we'll leave that one up to how I think about it next time. This Subdude signing out. Y'all have a pleasant today, a better tomorrow, and we'll catch you in the sky in Air Realistic on the good maps. Good night, folks.